You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. I really wanted to say, hey, everybody. I know I did. This is your host, Nikki Sims.
Is it Friday yet?
It's Friday in some parts of my brain. Also, I think some parts of my brain are still in Mexico. But welcome to Beast Overburden. I'm Nikki. This is Andrew.
Good afternoon. Howdy.
Howdy. I had a really interesting exchange with a client today that I wanted to share, and I think it would be really useful for other people. And Andrew doesn't know at all what I'm going to talk about. This is all a surprise, but fortunately, Andrew's very smart, so this will go really well.
All hearing this for the first time together.
So I have a client who's been really quite consistent. And ever since we first started to work with each other, he was really concerned about putting on muscle, of course, but he also had voices in his head from people in his family and his doctor about needing to lose weight. And I think it was a shared goal that his waist measurement needed to come down, but he was hearing he needed to do cardio and not being advised to strength train, because he's also been hearing that, well, I need to build muscle. So he has these two conflicting sides in his head, and he continues to be really consistent with his strength training, but the nutrition changes and cardio have been less consistent. And so it came to the surface again today, as a strong recommendation from his doctor that he needs to lose 10 to 15 pounds and start doing cardio.
Can we get a little context on his current weight and waist or body composition?
I think he's around 185. I don't have his waist measurement. He is not my nutrition client. And so that was my follow-up question is, do you need some nutrition accountability? That's where I was coming from.
Just rough mathing this. At 185 pounds, for a doctor to recommend him to lose 10 to 15 pounds, he's got to be 5'2".
Nope.
What the hell is going on here?
I mean, I see some opportunity for a waist measurement to go down, but he doesn't look unhealthy to me by any means.
How tall would you estimate?
Do you want me to get actual numbers here?
I mean, just kind of helps paint the picture. Triangulating. At least that, to me, hearing a doctor recommend 10 or 15 pounds is not out of the impossible scenarios, but I'm just trying to get a sense of, trying to visualize roughly what this person might look like. And
5'8", right now, 185
pounds.
Yeah. So
they want them to be 5'8", 160 pounds.
So I'm guessing the doctor has some BMI calculation that he just, one of his basic thing that he tries to get all of his patients to fit. And, 5'8", 160 something pounds is not great in terms of...
Especially for somebody who's lifting.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's been training consistently for how long now?
I think over a year now.
Yeah, that would be small.
Yeah.
5'8", 160 pounds would be a very small lifter.
But of course, his doctor has a scare factor of this is for your health. You need to improve your cardiovascular health. So, I imagine it's scary to be hearing that, and you have
Do you know if there's any blood work component that is influencing the discussion?
Not right now. No. Yeah. But I think there's probably some history that we've talked about at some point, which is not coming to the surface of my brain at this time, about high blood pressure, high cholesterol, but I'm sorry, I don't have that useful information. But where I thought it would be interesting to go with this is, how do you marry that philosophy of, well, okay, I need to lose body fat, but also I really want to have muscle. How do I understand what it's like to have muscle and still need to lose weight and manage body fat? Because I think he's hearing that it's not possible. You need to stop strength training. You need to lose weight. You need to do cardio. And he's still fighting for his strength training, but he even said, he's like, I'm confused. Doctors don't advocate for this. He just wants me to stop doing this and lose a bunch of weight.
Some doctors.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to me how there are highly educated medical professionals that seem to completely misunderstand what I consider basic physiology. Basic, this is how the body works in the real world.
Like what exactly in this context?
Maybe they understand physiology, but they have no concept of practically how to change the body or to manage body composition, or
Yeah, it's a muscle thing.
not understand how the process of building muscle or losing body fat works in what appears to me the most basic sense. Now, I will at the same time give doctors the benefit of the doubt that where, people or anyone that I hear in a medical profession that is giving this kind of advice, that it's possible that the individual might not be hearing the advice because the individual doesn't understand. There's maybe some edge cases where that's the case. Like the doctor might not actually be saying what that individual is hearing.
Sure.
But the idea that you can't strength train while managing your body composition is not correct.
Right.
Period, full stop, end of story.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, there are definitely a lot of adverse health conditions that come from having a hip to waist ratio where your waist is bigger than your hips. Like that tends to be correlated with a lot of cardiovascular disease and metabolic disease. So I think they have that truth in their head. But then, like you said, they don't see the full system. I think some doctors can be good at looking like, I need to fix this shoulder. I need to fix this thing. But there's no thought into, how is this man going to be living in 20 years? He needs to have muscle on his skeleton. So how do we make sure that we're in a healthy body fat zone and still appreciate how he needs to live in the next 20 years?
Yeah, I think it's the going back to giving the benefit of the doubt to whoever's telling him that he needs to lose the weight, that their intentions are good. I'll grant them that. But the mental model is broken. And the mental model they're using, I would agree, is most likely a BMI calculation.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to say that BMI is some people are, would say that BMI is completely useless. I don't know that that's entirely true. But I just think you have to understand the components of it, and to, as a blanket statement, say, lose 15 pounds to get from 185 to 160 so that your BMI, as the value metric, if you will, is in line with what the charts say it should be based on its height, is, I would agree with you, missing the forest through the trees, that you're hyperfixating on this metric that is not going to give you the best indication of your long-term quality of life.
Yeah.
And for most people that are lifting and that have more muscle mass than the average person, is not going to give you a better result. Now, it's not to say that he can't lose weight either.
Right.
I just think that the conversation is missing good first principles as to what the real value metric is and how to go about getting there.
Right. And I also think the model is kind of inherently broken, like you were saying, about how do I lose weight? Where, the first thing that would pop into a lot of minds is, well, I need to go on runs. I need to do more cardio.
Right.
And that is not going to do it. That is not going to make you lose 10 to 15 pounds.
Independently.
Independently,
that itself.
yeah.
Yeah, just only adding running, unless you are right at maintenance level of caloric intake, and that extra physical activity is enough to put you at a slight deficit.
Right.
But it's not because of the running. It's that you've increased in physical activity.
Yes. It's the calories out.
To a point where you're in a deficit.
Yeah. And so I tried to simplify it to give him things to think about, to, I guess, kind of paraphrase myself. I said, you will lose weight when you are in a caloric deficit. You're in a caloric deficit when calories out is greater than calories in. calories out comes from exercise and existing.
Mostly
It takes
existing.
calories just to exist. And I don't think that's something that people understand. And that is why muscle really benefits you, because the calories you need to simply exist increases. And so you're helping yourself in that way at just your steady state level of needing energy to simply be awake gets higher. And so your training sessions in the moment, you burn some calories during your 45, 75 minutes, but then you're also increasing muscle mass, and that is costly tissue in a good way. Whereas something like conditioning and cardio, you burn calories while you're doing it, period.
And you can flip that example on its head that most people will relate to as common knowledge that your metabolism slows down, quote unquote, slows down as you age. Most people perceive and believe that your metabolism slows down as you age, which is not true depending on how you look at it. The metabolic process does not slow down.
Yeah, it isn't just this metabolic boss who's like, I'm going to be slow now because I'm retired.
No. What's actually happening is that it's taking less energy to exist because most people, or pretty much everybody, eventually is losing muscle mass. And it becomes this really difficult battle to fight that I think most people struggle with, especially if they're not strength training, because you're losing 10% of your muscle mass a year after, age 40 on average. And unless you're fighting to retain that, you're in this death spiral of, literally, if you zoom out far enough, of losing muscle mass. So the only way to maintain or lose body fat is to continue to produce your calories. And then you lose more muscle mass.
And then you're tired.
You don't need as much energy and you're tired. And then so you're having to cut and reduce your calories because that's the only lever you have other than, if you're going to go run more or, be more physically active. But that's just relatively such a small amount compared to what it takes to maintain a strong, healthy, muscular body, that it's just, I think it's probably extremely frustrating to most people that don't have a good mental model of how their body actually sustains itself, how calories in and calories out work, where most of the energy is going. And, this is why you see the stereotypical cardio bunny or a person that runs, just goes on the treadmill and just keeps getting more and more body fat as they age.
Yeah. And usually there's an increase in appetite in both circumstances, in lifting and in like bursts of cardio. And, it takes a lot of time doing physical activity to burn calories.
Oh my gosh. Have you ever sat there and just like watched?
It's ridiculous.
Even like, let's give the calorie counters on this treadmill or whatever the benefit of the doubt that it's accurate, which it's not. But just watching it go up is brutal.
Yeah. And even in, there were actual studies, and I think you needed to train or exercise like 3 hours a day for 9 months to lose like 2 pounds. It was something that ridiculous, or not ridiculous, but extreme, where it's just like, I don't have the time or energy for that.
With maintaining calories.
Yeah.
Consistent, yeah.
It's so much activity. And so it's, what sides of that equation can you play that will maintain your quality of life? And it's putting on muscle mass, and then monitoring or creating a slight caloric deficit that you put yourself in for a period of time where you're not going to totally sacrifice a bunch of muscle, which means, depending on how much body fat you have to lose, 1/4 pound a week, 1 pound a week, and then you take a break and you go into maintenance. So that, you're going to, whenever you lose weight, and the more leaner you are, the more true this is, you're going to lose some body fat, some muscle.
Yeah, I just had a client who, over the last 9 months, has lost about 50 pounds. I think 50 pounds total for the year. He started the year at like 280, almost 290, and he's in the 230s now.
Dang.
And went from 23, he just did a DEXA scan before and after, went from 23 to 17% and change. And his lean body mass, I think he lost 0.5 kilo of lean body mass.
Wow.
Which is pretty good. For that much, out of the 50 some odd pounds that he lost, roughly a poundish was muscle.
And I know his PRs have been happening still.
I think he's about to hit a press PR, surprisingly, like really surprisingly.
Wow, that is surprising. Yeah.
But he's had some back issues, so we've sort of just been rehabbing that. His bench and his press, though, are pretty much held stable. So even in a case where you have pretty significant amount of excess body fat to pull from as he was cutting, you still lose some lean body mass, because going back to the same first principle that muscle is really takes more energy to maintain. It's also when your body is perceiving itself to be in a deficit, in kind of borderline, you're not technically starvation mode, but your body is designed to resist losing weight or losing. It basically doesn't want to let itself die. So
yes, thank you, body.
It's going to, let go of some of the more expensive tissue to maintain, which is muscle mass. So that's just kind of the reality of how that process goes. But the slower you can go, the better. And
right.
I think I've talked about that before with one of my clients who did a very carefully controlled weight loss of about a pound a week. And he was disappointed with the amount of muscle mass he lost. Pretty lean guy, went from like 92 kilos to 85 or something like that. So it was only like a 10 or 15 pound loss over a few months.
I think that's a lot. Yeah.
But in hindsight, he would have preferred to go with a quarter to a half pound a week on average.
That's so interesting. When someone starts the process with like, I need to lose a lot of weight fast.
Yep.
And then they feel what it's like on the other side. And they're like, man, I lost stuff that was really hard to earn.
Totally. And I mean, take it to the extreme of that, where, the bodybuilder extreme, that your body starts shutting down like major functions.
Yeah.
As you start getting into the ultra lean.
You get extremely anxious. You can't sleep.
Your testosterone, like there's basically, if you're a natural bodybuilder, I was just reading about this earlier today, that you go hypogonadal, like your testosterone is essentially zero at,
oh my God,
we're talking now single digit body fat percentages.
Show ready.
But, there's a reason that most bodybuilders are not natural, because they basically have figured out over the years to replace all of the things that your body stops producing with exogenous supplements, testosterone, growth hormone. The list goes on. They're on so much stuff now because your body just doesn't want to do that. Your body does not want to be that lean.
Yeah.
Granted, that's not a problem for most people, but the point is that being in a caloric deficit is not a good thing, for sustaining optimal levels of energy and health. You want to minimize that, and you want to be patient with that process.
Yep. It's a long, steady game.
Have you had a chance to talk to this example?
Not since then. I'm excited to hear from him again, and I'm going to ask some more follow-up questions about like, what is this 10 to 15 about? Where did this number come from? And I mean, I feel like a totally different human when I'm 2.5 pounds lighter or heavier.
Yeah.
Like that just sounds really hard to lose 10 to 15 pounds at his body weight and height. Like,
well, yeah. And he's not that much heavier than you are.
Right. Yeah. He's got
and shorter
20 pounds on me.
So
yeah
20 pounds and 2 inches. So you are significantly leaner. What I try to help my clients in that situation think about and give the mental model that I try to give them is that there are 3 value metrics that I try to consider. One is body composition. And I do think there's a detriment to having excessive levels of body fat relative to lean body mass in terms of your metabolic health. Obvious. Well, I shouldn't say obvious, but there's extensive amount of research showing that there is a point in which having a significant amount of body mass or excess body fat is not going to be good for you in a lot of different ways. And I think everybody's on the same page there. But the whether or not to do or how much conditioning to do is, in my opinion, a value metric around cardiovascular health, which I do think is worth considering. And it's why you hear strength and conditioning as part of the thing we do. The things we do is, I think, or at least most people in the fitness industry talk about strength and conditioning, because I do think there's an argument to be made for cardiovascular health that you need to do more than just lift. Your ability to, for your heart to operate well, for your body to process oxygen efficiently and effectively, which also sustains your ability to train heavy with barbells. Like I think it's not an independent variable or factor of your training, but it is a component of your training that is important to include for long-term health and performance. And then there's muscle mass and strength. I think there's a piece in there around food quality that might kind of stand independently. I think that you can achieve all of those things without prioritizing or being like intentional about food quality. But I think food quality, focusing on food quality or prioritizing food quality decisions around fiber and protein and, whichever you prefer and or perform better on between fat and carbs for your energy source, like those things are going to impact the ability to accomplish your goals in the other three. So maybe I would argue there's those 4 factors. And of course, we could go into sleep and hormonal health and all those.
There could be a list of 10 if yeah.
There could be a long list. But in terms of the questions where your client is coming from, that I sympathize with a lot because that's very common for people. And whether it's your friends, family, or your doctor to say, in order to be healthy, you need to go running or, you need to get more.
You need to do more cardio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
But the key is why, understanding the why behind that. And I think most people don't have the right mental model for the why.
No, and there's a lot of information out there to absorb. So
yeah.
Anyway, hopefully this helps someone who deals with that same conflict. And I think it was really helpful to talk about your model. And I just want to reiterate the importance of putting muscle on your skeleton to enable your resting caloric needs to get higher, because then you can enjoy food more and manipulate your body composition with more control and enjoy life longer. So
totally.
Yeah. Well, thank you, fellow beast. And thank you, all of you beasts, for listening to us. This has been the Barbell Logic Podcast, Beast Overburden. I'm Nikki. That's Andrew. See you next week.
Bye-bye.